Good morning, students. I hope you've already gone through the topics of elementary mathematics, as we are going to have a wide variety of applications of those operations over here. Let's begin a new chapter, that is motion in straight line. Before starting it, we are going to discuss about some of the terms. The first one is mechanics. The branch of physics which deals with study of motion is known as mechanics. Now, mechanics has been further divided into two parts, statics and dynamics. As the name itself suggests, the study of objects which are at rest is known as statics. However, the study of objects in motion is known as dynamics. Now, dynamics can further be divided into two categories, kinematics and dynamics proper. Under kinematics, we are going to study only about motion without taking the cause of the motion into consideration. However, when we study dynamics proper, we study about motion and its cause both. The description of motion can be given in terms of two basic concepts, length and time, and two derived concepts, velocity and acceleration. Let's move on to the next topic, which is frame of reference. Now, what is frame of reference? See, whenever we study motion, it is studied with respect to a particular position. For example, when you are studying your motion from your home to school on a bicycle, your reference point is your home because the motion started from there. So, the body related to which a given mechanical motion is being considered or studied is called a reference body. Now, as you know, any body can be described in terms of three coordinates, that is x, y and z axis. So, the combination of a reference body and a coordinate system is called a reference frame or a frame of reference. Now, for studying any particular motion, we can have different frame of references. For example, when we are talking about a train moving by hillside, the frame of reference for the person standing under the tree and observing the moving train will be different, whereas the frame of reference for the person who is sitting inside the train will be completely different, since their reference points are completely different from each other. Or for example, when you are standing still, then with respect to your frame of reference, you are at rest. However, if we consider the frame of reference with respect to the earth, we will say that you are moving along with the earth. So, a motion can be described in various ways by the frame of reference we are considering for its study. Next is trajectory. You must have come across this word. The line along which a particle moves is known as trajectory. Its shape depends upon the reference frame chosen. Now, this is what I was telling you right now, that along with the frame of references, the motion will also change. For example, you are moving inside a train and you drop an apple over there. What do you observe? According to your frame of reference, the apple goes straight down. However, for a person who is standing outside the train and observing you, that apple will follow a parabolic path. That is, the trajectory according to your frame of reference is a straight line, whereas according to him would be a parabolic path. Here we are going to study about two types of frames of reference. The first one is inertial reference frame or inertial frame of reference. You all know the definition of inertia, the property of a body to maintain its position of rest or uniform motion is known as inertia. Also, the first law of motion is known as law of inertia, since it describes a body will continue its state of rest or uniform motion until and unless an external force is applied to change its state. That is, it will follow inertia. In the same way, the frame of reference where Newton's first law is correctly described, that is, a body will exhibit inertial property until an external force is applied, is known as inertial reference frame. These are unaccelerated and non-rotating. The next type of reference frames are non-inertial reference frames. These are accelerated or rotating, or we can say that they will be just opposite to inertial reference frame, and they are not going to exhibit the property of inertia since external force is being applied on it, as a result of which the body gets accelerated. This acceleration can be produced both by changing the velocity or the direction of the motion. Let's move to the next topic, which is concept of point mass or point object. Now, in physics, when we are going to study about motion, mostly we will be considering the object under motion as a point object. So, an object is said to be a point object or point mass when change in its position is very large as compared to its own size. For example, when you are moving from your home to your school and we consider your size with respect to the path you are going to travel, that is going to be very small, and hence you will be considered as a point mass or point object for that motion. Let's move on to the next topic, motion and rest. Please note one thing, most of the topics from here will be the same things which you have already studied in your previous classes. It will just be a revision of those things. So, as we move to the next topic, that is motion and rest, the first thing is rest. The position of an object does not change with respect to the surroundings. You all know that when the position of any object is not changing with the surrounding, it is at rest with respect to that particular surrounding. For example, the book kept on your table is at rest with respect to the surrounding and you. Motion. When the position of object changes with respect to surroundings, the body is said to be in motion. For example, your position kept on changing when you were moving from your home to school, and hence you were in motion. Since you all know that the position of the object is described by three coordinates, x-axis, y-axis and z-axis, so accordingly we can divide the motion into three types. First one is one-dimensional motion. When one of the three coordinates specifying position of object changes with time, the motion is said to be one-dimensional. For example, an apple falling on the ground, the motion of the car on road. Next type is two-dimensional, where two of the three coordinates change with time. For example, the motion of planet around the sun, or a snake moving on ground exhibits two-dimensional motion. Next one is three-dimensional motion. In these type of motions, all the three coordinates change with respect to time. For example, the motion of a gas molecule or the motion of a kite in sky. Our next topic is distance and displacement. the total path covered by a body is known as distance, whereas the shortest distance between the initial and final position is known as displacement. You already have studied about it. If anyone has a confusion, you can just have a look over here. Suppose we have to move from point A to point B and we are moving in this manner. Then the distance from A to B can be calculated by adding the total path that has been traveled. That means this line plus this line plus this plus this plus this plus this and finally this will give us the total distance traveled by the body to move from point A to point B. Whereas when we are studying about displacement, the shortest distance between the starting and the final position is a straight line. So this line AB, or you can say the length of line AB, will provide us the value of the displacement over here. Let's move to the second point, that is distance is a scalar quantity whereas displacement is a vector quantity. You all have already studied that the quantities which have only magnitude are known as scalar quantities, whereas the quantities which have a fixed direction and magnitude are known as vector quantities. So as you observed over here, the direction of the distance was not fixed. However, when we are talking about displacement, the direction of the displacement from A to B will always be in this form itself. So we can say that displacement is a vector quantity whereas distance is a scalar quantity. The distance can never be zero for a body in motion, whereas displacement can be zero even if the body was in motion. For example, the object travels from point A to point B and comes back to point A. Then because the initial and final position both are same, so the displacement will be zero. However, the total distance that has been traveled over there will be AB plus BA. That will not be equal to zero. Let's move to the next topic, which is speed and velocity. Now, the distance traveled in unit time is known as speed, whereas the displacement in unit time is known as velocity. Speed is given as distance upon time, whereas velocity is given as displacement upon time. Because speed is depending upon distance, so it's a scalar quantity, whereas velocity is a vector quantity since it depends upon displacement. I just forgot to mention one thing, students. The unit for measuring distance and displacement will be meters, whereas the standard unit for measuring speed and velocity will be meters per second, and accordingly you can find out the dimensions also. The average velocity is given as change in position upon total time taken, that is change in position upon change in time, or you can say displacement upon change in time. The symbol for average velocity is V bar. Now suppose that we reduce the time to very small duration, that is we are taking the time very small such that it tends to 0. Then putting the limit del t tends to 0, we can write del s upon del t as ds upon dt. Since we are taking a very short span of time, we can also call it as instantaneous velocity. Let's move to the next topic, which is acceleration. Now, the rate of change of velocity is known as acceleration. So, because we are talking about rate of change, so it will be with respect to time. That is change in velocity with respect to time, or you can say change in velocity upon time interval gives us acceleration. Vector A, you will be studying about vectors in the next chapter. We describe vector quantities with a arrow on their head. So vector A, that is acceleration, can be described as final velocity minus initial velocity whole upon final time minus initial time. That is change in velocity upon change in time. Now, if we take the time interval to be very, very small, then taking limit where del t is tending to 0 for del v upon del t, we can write it as dv upon dt, which gives us the instantaneous acceleration. Negative acceleration is known as retardation. That is when the speed of the body is decreasing with time. It will be known as retardation or negative acceleration. The unit of acceleration is meters per second square and its dimension is L t raised to the power minus 2. Before starting the next topic, I would like to remind you that you have already studied about the various types of graphs, that is time displacement graph, time velocity graph and time acceleration graph in your previous classes. We are going to move ahead with the same things. So our first type of graph is time displacement graph. As you can see in the graph itself, being independent quantity, the time will always be taken on the x-axis. Because it's a time displacement graph, so I have taken displacement on the y-axis. You can see a straight line depicting displacement with respect to time has been shown over here. Now, suppose that we have to calculate velocity from this graph. How can we do it? We can do it by finding out the slope of the graph line. As you can see, this is the graph line we are having. Let's take any two arbitrary points A and B on it. Taking abscissa and ordinate of point A as T1 S1 and abscissa and ordinate of point B as T2 S2, we can find out the slope by using the formula S2 minus S1 upon T2 minus T1, which can be written as del S upon del T. From here, one thing is confirmed, that slope is depicting velocity, because the formula of velocity is del S upon del T and the formula of slope is x2 minus x1 upon y2 minus y1. Both are giving the same values, so what we can say over here, that we are sure about the fact that slope is depicting velocity over here. Now del S upon del T with respect to this diagram can be written as CB upon AC, which gives us a triangle ABC. Now in this triangle, suppose we take this angle to be theta, then how can we describe it as BC upon AC, that is perpendicular upon base, is giving us tan theta, which is equal to velocity. Please note one thing, we can also know the value of theta from here, since these both are corresponding angles. Students, please note one more thing, whenever we are studying about motion or any quantity, it is very essential to describe all the terms that we are taking over here, like S2, S1, T2, T1 or V. What are these things? It is very essential to describe. However, since I was writing here in order to teach you people, I haven't mentioned, but make it a habit that before starting any question, the first statement that you will be writing over there would be, for example, if I explain for this one, for 2 points A and B taken on a straight line, let T1 be the time and S1 the displacement corresponding to point A and T2 and S2 corresponding to point B. The velocity of the object is given as. So in the same way, whenever you are explaining or whenever you are going for any of the derivations, it is very important to explain all the terms clearly. Please note some of the things with respect to time displacement graphs. Greater is the slope of the graph line, greater is the velocity. Now, as you can observe over here, the slope of line A is more than the slope of line B. That means the velocity in case of A will be higher than the velocity in case of B. You can observe here that there is a straight line moving parallel to x-axis. So because the line is moving parallel to x-axis, its slope will be 0. So because its slope is 0, that means we can say the object is at rest. If the graph line makes an angle greater than 90 degree with the x-axis, that is slope of line is negative, then it means that object is returning back to reference point. As you can see over here, the graph is declining, or you can say that the angle here is greater than 90 degree. That is, the slope will be negative, and whenever the slope is negative, what do we say? That the object is moving back towards the reference point, or the direction of the motion of the object is towards the point of reference. If there are several lines of different slopes, then it means that at times the velocity of the object changes. As you can observe over here, OA has a different slope than AB, again which has different slope than BC, which has a different slope than CD. So what we can say over here, that the motion from O to A was a uniform motion where the velocity was constant. However, from A to B, again the motion is uniform with constant velocity, but it is different from OA. Again, from B to C, the motion is constant with uniform velocity, which is completely different from A to B or O to A, and the same case is existing for the motion from C to D also. If it is a continuous curve, it means the velocity is continuously changing. Now you will observe some graphs where the line is curved. When the line is curved, we say that the velocity is continuously changing. Now, in such cases, we can find out the slope of the graph by joining two points which are close to each other. Here I have taken it as P and Q. And joining these 2 points and finding out the slope for the line PQ, we can find out the velocity, or you can say the average velocity for this curve. Here the slope of PQ will give us the average velocity from time t1 to t2. Let's consider one more thing. See, if the change in time is very small, or it is tending to 0, Q will come infinitesimally close to P. Now, what you can see here is that when the difference between T1 and T2 will become very small, that is, the T2 will come somewhere over here, then what will we observe? That the point Q will come over here. That is, it will be very close to point P. Then PQ will become tangent to point P. Now, because both the points are nearly coinciding with each other, so the line PQ will form a tangent to point P. The slope of this tangent will give us the value of instantaneous velocity. That is, slope when limit of time is tending to 0, del S upon del T can be written as ds upon dt, which represents instantaneous velocity. Hence, again the same thing, hence the slope of tangent drawn at a point on the time displacement graph is instantaneous velocity, or you can say it represents instantaneous velocity. Let's move to the next type of graph. Now basically for the reading of the graph, we will be following the same pattern. That is, in order to find the slopes or in order to check whether the slope is negative or positive, everything will be same. So let's move to the next thing, that is time velocity graph. In time velocity graph, time as always is taken on x-axis, whereas velocity is taken on y-axis. Now studying the graph from time t1 to t2, we have the change in time as del t, and suppose we find out the area under the graph for time t1 to t2. What do we observe over here? Since the area of a rectangle is length into breadth, and here the length is del t and the breadth is v, so we can represent the area as v into t. Now we all know that the formula of displacement is also v into t. That means what we can say over here is that the displacement will be represented by area under the graph, which is v into t2 minus t1, that is v into del t, which we have already discussed earlier. Similarly, using a velocity time graph, we can find out the acceleration by finding the slope of the graph. In the same manner like we found out velocity from displacement time graph. So acceleration will be represented as v2 minus v1 upon t2 minus t1, which can be written as del v upon del t. As for graph, we can take the previous graph into consideration. Suppose that in this particular graph itself, instead of having displacement on the y-axis, we had velocity over here. Then we could have described acceleration as the change in y-axis upon change in x-axis. Then because velocity would have been here, so the change in y-axis would have been represented as, instead of s2 minus s1, it would have been represented as v2 minus v1. So this would have become a is equal to change in velocity upon time taken, which is del v upon del t. So we can infer that the slope of time velocity graph will give us acceleration, whereas its area will give us displacement. Now if we have a curve representing the velocity time graph for motion of any body, then the slope can be found out in the same manner what we had used for displacement time graph. That is, we can take two arbitrary points P and Q on it, which are close to each other. Now joining these points P and Q, we get a line PQ, and the slope of this line PQ will give us the average acceleration of the body. However, if we are required to find out the instantaneous acceleration of the body, that can be found out by putting the limit where del t tends to 0, del v upon del t is equal to dv upon dt. I hope you can understand this thing, since we have already studied the same concept in case of time displacement graph. Let's move to the last type of graph, which is time acceleration graph. Now the graph here represents constant acceleration. Here we have taken time on x-axis and acceleration on y-axis. Also we are studying the acceleration for the time interval t1 to t2. Now when we find out the area under the graph for the time interval t1 to t2, it can be, again, since it's a rectangle, it can be given as length into breadth, which is del t into a. Now we all know that a del t is the formula for velocity. So what we can say over here, that area under the time acceleration graph will give us the velocity of the body. So del v is equal to a into t2 minus t1, that is a into del t.